Yeah, good morning, and thank you all for having me here. And hopefully, I'll show some light on the not only the company of Nouryon, but especially a different perspective on hydrogen. I would say up to now we have heard a lot about the energy market and how the energy market could drive the hydrogen market. And now I want to take a different perspective in this presentation, really starting from the end market. So where are we going to use the hydrogen, and then from the end market go actually back, and where do we want to produce it, and what type of energy do we then actually need? So for the people who don't know Nouryon, we are formerly known as AkzoNobel Specialty Chemicals. So we're a Dutch chemical company, but operating globally actually. So with heavy presence in Northwestern Europe, but also in Asia, in the US, and in South America. But today I want to highlight the activities on hydrogen and especially around circular chemistry. When we are talking about the end market, this is what we are talking about. It's here on the right-hand side of the screen. It's how are we going to decarbonize the world of the airplanes, of shipping, of plastics, of steel. If we are serious with the targets which we have set within Paris, that we want to decarbonize completely by 2050, this is where we need the solutions. This is where we are going to develop a completely new economy. This is the bio-based, this is the circular, this is the green economy. And I think in this new economy, hydrogen will play an essential and vital role. And I'll show you how, because for that you need a lot of green electricity. For that we need a lot of carbon. So carbon is not our enemy. We tend to forget if we listen to all the recent announcements or all the things related to Paris and all the announcements regarding carbon reduction. Carbon is our main enemy, but everything we need to produce, every product we are using on a daily basis is built of carbon. So instead of storing the carbon somewhere or emitting it to the air, I think we should build on value chains which actually valorize the carbon. So use the carbon in a way that we can build the products of tomorrow, but then in a more sustainable way. And in order to do that, we need a lot of hydrogen. So that carbon can come from waste from the steel industry, municipal waste. We have a lot of carbon sources available. Of course, we need a lot of green electricity, and I'll give you some figures later on what type of numbers we are talking about when we are looking at these individual projects. And of course, carbon can come from bio-based materials. And using that carbon from waste and from the bio-based economy, together with green electricity, and then not the green electricity, but especially the hydrogen, the molecule, you can build all the products we need to also build our economy for 2050. So that's what my presentation will be about today. So how will it come together? So we have the world of the electricity, and we know the answers to how to decarbonize the world of electricity. That's sun, that's wind, that's bio-based. That's not the complex part of this whole energy transition. The complex part is how are we going to shift from a fossil-based carbon source to bio-based circular carbon sources. But of course that production is not coming at a baseload stage, so that will be rather volatile. And this is also where demand-side management through electrolysis can play a role. Electrolysis is very flexible, as also is shown in the earlier presentations today. Then looking at the hydrogen side, we can indeed use hydrogen for decarbonizing what we are doing today. So we have a use of natural gas for the production of ammonia. We can use that, do that as well, but then via ammonia through hydrogen, so without the carbon emissions. So hydrogen can also be used for industrial decarbonization, replacement of natural gas in many of the processes. But another thing I would like to highlight is large-scale storage. A lot of people talked about large-scale storage already earlier today, but we can do that in a molecule, but we can do that also really directly underground. We have large caverns available in many countries in Europe, and these caverns, which are used today for the storage of nitrogen, which are used for the storage of oil, which are used for the storage of natural gas, can also be used for the storage of hydrogen. And then we are really talking about storages which will help us through these winter times. When it's cold outside, it's dark, so wind and sun is not sufficient to meet our demand. So that's something, we are a chemical company, but we're also big in salt, so we produce these caverns in some of the countries in Europe, which we are exploring also for the use of hydrogen. And then of course, when we have hydrogen in the industrial sector, we can also use that towards potentially residential or mobility. But we believe that the scale-up will not come from mobility. We believe that the scale-up will not come from the residential sector. The scale-up will come from the industry. This is where we need large volumes of hydrogen, and as was pointed out in earlier presentations, the scale-up is essential to get the costs down. We need to get the capex down, and that's, let's take the parallel with offshore wind. Also there we took 10, 15 to 20 years to really industrialize a completely new sector. Through innovation and scale up, bring the cost down. And that's also what we need to do here. But we need to start now. And I think the place to start is the industry. And I'll show what places we think that we should start in the next slide. And then of course it's the carbon side, where hydrogen is the key enabler for the carbon capture and utilization. So build the product value chains of tomorrow. The product, the circular products, the bio-based products of 2030, 2050. The other thing I've been hearing a lot is that hydrogen is actually fairly new. We need to build up our capabilities when it comes to hydrogen, but in the industrial sector, hydrogen is already there and since decades. We know how to handle it, we know how to use it, we know how to transport it, and we know how to produce it. The only thing is that what we are talking about here is a production of hydrogen through water electrolysis. But already today, we as Nouryon, we have 1 gigawatt of electrolysis worldwide. So we know how to do it. But if we look at the hydrogen production through water electrolysis, the largest installation is a 10 megawatt installation which we have in Norway, which you see on the right-hand side. That is the largest hydrogen production unit via water electrolysis nowadays. And then it's the question, how can we scale that up from the 10 megawatts today to the gigawatts which we expect 2030 and onwards? So that's where the need for scale-up is. But we have been active in this since, 1900 in this market of hydrogen, and we have this water electrolysis unit already since 30 years in Norway. But now it's time for scale-up. But we know how to do it. It's not something we don't know. But how are we going to reach that scale-up? This is a picture of various projects we have announced and we have been working on in multiple countries, primarily in Europe. Or this is actually only Europe. We have multiple projects outside as well, but I tend to focus here on the initiatives in Northwestern Europe. And these are not only projects which are in the pipeline, some of them have been executed or are under construction. So there is a 2 megawatt electrolyzer unit already together with ThyssenKrupp in Germany, where we're going to take their off gases of the steel industry and take that circular carbon and produce methanol. Not from fossil sources, but then really from a circular source. It's already there. You can see it, you can look at it, and then of course it's a matter of scale up, because the potential in the steel industry is significantly bigger. To decarbonize ThyssenKrupp completely, so the existing plant, you need 4,000 megawatts of electrolysis. So really large scale. But this is a first initial step. Then we are working on a project in the northern part of the Netherlands. Recently got awarded through the EUW Hydrogen Valley of Europe, which is in the northern part of the Netherlands. That's a project with BioMCN, so an existing methanol plant where we will build a 20 megawatt installation. We expect financial close mid next year, so quite well advanced in our project process. And of course 20 megawatts is interesting, but the total potential of the existing plant of that company is 1500 megawatts. So also for them, an initial step, but an important stepping stone for further decarbonization. And on top of that, at the same location, we are working with a new build refinery based on cooking oil to start to produce jet fuel, together with KLM, the Royal Dutch Airline, as an add-on on the existing 20 megawatt project, another 40 megawatts to bring hydrogen into the refinery to produce jet fuel with a long-term offtake agreement of, in this case, KLM. So also a sector really difficult to decarbonize, but here we are building on the first solutions. And of course, also here the potential, as you can imagine, is significantly larger, not only for KLM, but of course for all the other airlines out there as well. Then another project related to Tata Steel, the steel industry in the Netherlands. So the only and the largest steel plant in the Netherlands, a 100 megawatt hydrogen plant. Also on that side to decarbonize their steel production, take their off gases, clean them, and take that carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, combine that with hydrogen to start to produce methanol or any other type of chemical, really building the circular economy. So what's the problem today? The carbon emissions out of the steel industry, we turn into a solution and actually into new economic opportunities. And that is what we try to do there. And again, here the potential of the existing steel plant on that premises is around 5,000 megawatts. And the interesting thing about that is that, and then I'll refer to the presentation earlier of the EAA, that the port is really important. And the interesting thing about Tata Steel is that they're actually located on the port side, but also at the place where the offshore wind parks will actually dock into their premises. So the cable will enter into the site of Tata Steel. So we also prevent that large infrastructure need to be built inland. We can utilize that electricity at large scale already from the beginning onwards. And then the last project I want to highlight here is a project also in Rotterdam, so in the Netherlands, a large refinery together with BP to build higher value fuels, a 250 megawatt into the Rotterdam area. And also there I don't have to explain you that the potential not only at BP but also at the Rotterdam cluster is significantly larger than this unit. So what we try to do is build stepping stones. Build stepping stones on industrial utilization, so all these companies have no problem in taking in that hydrogen. Also there's a larger potential in each and every one of these locations to take further steps. But of course we need a lot of support in that, and that's where innovation and research is essential. Already mentioned earlier is also the importance of certification. We have been one of the founding members of Certify, the certification of green hydrogen, because we believe it's important to have a proper tracking and tracing system so that the products we produce and deliver to our customers are trustworthy products. We have a bus pilot, so we have a tanking station at one of our sites in the northern part of the Netherlands, and buses are driving on our hydrogen. And we have multiple projects in Sweden, in Germany, and an innovation project where we will look at innovation on the side of electrolysis, both on PEM and on alkaline. So we have a global view. This is only the Northwest European view, but it clearly shows the need for scale-up, the need for industrial decarbonization, and really how that can go hand in hand. And that's also where I want to finalize the presentation. I hear a lot, and that's also where I started, about decarbonize of what we do today. But I think hydrogen is actually key in building our new economy, building the jobs of the future, and building also economic perspectives for Europe. And that is where a need for really large scale-up of renewable energy production is essential. We need to develop our own technology and our own decarbonization of the clusters in order to build the products also of the future. And then by these green industry, we can also build products where our customers can benefit from, but also the full society can benefit from. But you cannot do it alone. You need to work in cooperation with partners, and that's what you see in each and every one of these projects. Thank you.